Hey guys, welcome back to Honey Badger Arcade. So I have to make this video. I don't know how long it's going to take, but basically I'm going to be reacting to a game designer or former game designer of God of War as well as Twisted Metal, David Jaffe. I have spoken to David Jaffe in the past, many years ago. I can link the original streams I did with him in the description if you want to check them out during Gamergate when it started. And it seems that Jaffe has not really learned anything from the past 10 years, at least outside of what he is willing to tolerate. So David Jaffe, in case you guys don't know, I would characterize him as a Gen X liberal that has not figured out or has not been able to draw a line at what is considered beyond the pale. And because liberalism places tolerance itself as the highest virtue, it kind of puts them in a bind. Liberals are in a bind as to where is the line drawn? And a lot of times they look around themselves and they look to see what is considered sort of like, what's the standard now? Okay, so this is the new standard, right? Transitioning children, for example. This is the new standard. So the liberal says, well, I should tolerate it because tolerance is the highest virtue. Therefore, I'm going to tolerate this, right? And this puts them in a bad situation because eventually they're going to get to a point where they're going to say, why am I allowing this? This is kind of what Anna Kasparian of the Young Turks is going through. She is essentially experiencing the limits of her own liberalism. And one of the things that liberals struggle with as well is that they believe that their set of beliefs is simply the better set, right? They're just better people. This is why I always get a little miffed when people try to characterize conservatives as somehow like the opposite or the antithesis of liberalism. And I know that that's often how it's framed, but it really doesn't make sense because the only thing that liberalism has is endless tolerance. Tolerance, 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 right? And conservatives are just people who draw a line somewhere. That's why the left always essentially like shrinks and pushes everyone else out. And I'm going to be distinct here. Leftism is not liberalism. These are different. But liberalism is going to lead to leftism simply because of its endless tolerance. So David Jaffe's got this video in response to comments that he got about Dragon Age the Veilgard. Now, we know Dragon Age the Veilgard is woke trash. One of the main reasons for this is, firstly, it seems to diverge quite a bit from the original games. I only played the first Dragon Age, and I didn't particularly love it. I thought it was okay. But he hasn't played either of them, by the way. He didn't play any of the games before this one. But he's going to defend Dragon Age the Veilgard. But the reason is not because he wants to defend the game on its own merits. He's defending the ideology behind the game, like what it was that pushed it out. He may not be aware of this, but this is actually what is happening. So let's take a look at his thoughts on people who disliked Dragon Age the Veilgard and said that they disliked it.
I assume I have to say this because people were writing me in the comments of the last video going, this is not Russia. We can say what we want. We can talk about a game we don't like. Allow me to be very clear. I know. No one actually is trying to prevent you from expressing whatever you want to express. It sucks I have to be clear on that, but I don't know. Some people maybe, I don't know. I shouldn't be surprised anymore that people don't actually watch the video. They just see the headline, but that's fine. It is. I mean, people are busy. Yes, of course, you can hate Dragon Age. You can hate it for any reason you want, and you can express it all day long. My video was not literally about saying you don't have that right. My video was saying if you have done that, and a lot of you have, and you've made your point clear, either by choosing not to buy it, even though a lot of you haven't played it or really looked into it, a lot of you are clearly parroting things you've heard or seen. You haven't played it. I've played it. But some of you have, and that's fine. Even if you haven't, that's fine. You don't have to have spent money to have an opinion on something.
I mean, what if you spend money to play the game so you can have a bad opinion on the game? You've already given them your money. This is like ridiculous. This is like, how do you know it's like the meme of the person squatting over a plate about to take a shit on the plate, and the she's saying to the guy that's looking, how do you know it's shit? It hasn't come out yet. That's like, why would people again, like, why would you even care enough to make a video about it while claiming you don't actually care that people have opinions on this? Again, this has nothing to do with the game. He's going to make it about the game, but it's not about the game. It's about the politics of the game and the people who made the game and the shills who were paid to promote the game, and the ideologues that thought it was a really good idea to push the politics that is obviously in the game. Okay. And I think that consumers by now, at least some, hopefully most, because the sales for this are not doing so great, or at least they're not meeting expectations, they're realizing that no matter what the tactics these people try to use to shame you, you ultimately get to spend your money on what you want. And if you don't spend your money on this, it does not make you a bad person. Although the critics and the shills and the developers and people like this will try to convince you otherwise. You're allowed to be a bigot. I mean, it's a free country. That's a ridiculous passive-aggressive attack, by the way.
I mean, you do, if you want to be taken serious, that you have to experience the thing you have an opinion on. But yes, of course you have that right.
No, you don't.
But my video was more about just like, I'm tired of hearing about it, so shut the fuck up. You don't actually have to shut the fuck up. I again, it's coming out of my mouth hearing it. It's like, yeah, that's so obvious. I know. But some people are not good with social cues, or some people are not good with, not that my thing was that nuance, but, some people take things very black and white. And literally the thumbnail says, shut up about Dragon Age. So maybe people are thinking, Jaffe says you can't talk about Dragon Age. Come on.
What if you're praising Dragon Age? Can you do that? Can you do that in your comments? Can you say, oh my God, so great, so inclusive, so diverse, so progressive, this game? I bet you can. I bet that's not really a problem. You don't want people to shut up about Dragon Age. You want people to stop criticizing Dragon Age because you spent money on it, and now you have to validate the fact you spent money on it.
But I mean, that's fine. So I just wanted to be clear. Talk about it, yell about it, boycott it, buy the physical edition, put your dick in the hole. I really don't care. I'm just saying I'm tired of hearing about it. I think it's annoying. I think in a lot of cases it is not based on any real experience with the game. And even the people that were writing me and saying, well, Jaffe doesn't know how different this is from the last Dragon Age. If you actually watch the video, I address that. I say in that video that I played Inquisition. I loved Inquisition. And clearly this doesn't feel like a direct sequel or even a continuation in some ways. The narrative is the same. It's about a lot of the same characters. And I didn't play the first two Dragon Ages. I've been led to understand.
Did Dragon Age I never played Inquisition, but did Dragon Age Inquisition have an awkward coming out as non-binary scene in it? Do the Qunari, I think that's what they're called, do they look the same? Do they feel the same as they did before? Isn't it obvious that Dragon Age the Veilgard took immense liberties? I mean, like, you're welcome to do that. Like, nobody's saying the game shouldn't exist. Nobody's saying the developers can't make it. Like, they can make whatever woke garbage they want, but at the end of the day, we also can decide how we want to spend our money. And I don't think that any love will be lost on this. But apparently it's an issue that people have criticisms and they vocalize it because you see the real danger is that maybe some other people who might have blindly walked up and bought the game without knowing could have been essentially told, this is what you should be, you should know this. This is what you're getting into with this game. Here's the stuff that they changed. Here's how the game sucks. And it's not just the woke shit. It's all of the really other dumb shit, like the way the story unfolds, how none of your choices matter, which you could say is part of the problem with the kind of politics too, because the politics of, making everything safe, making everything like less triggering, that's obviously coming out in the actual gameplay, the actual like mechanics of role playing, as well as the puzzles being super ridiculously stupid in terms of their simplicity. Again, you could argue, and I think I could make a good case as to why that is also a product of this anti-meritocratic system of belief that essentially says, well, look, puzzles can't be too hard because you might hurt somebody's feelings if they are, so let's make them as easy as possible. It's literally like the problem of commie thinking. Flatten everything so that there's nothing exceptional, and then you have a product that's for everybody. So that's what we're going to get. And people should know that they're going to get into that so that they can decide how to spend their money. And if they don't want to spend their money on this trash, then they shouldn't have to. And of course, you're not advocating they should have to, but you are saying, I don't want to hear about it anymore because maybe you just don't want the truth out there. I mean, like, or at least an opinion that you don't agree with. Anyway.
Understand that Dragon Age 1 and 2 are different from each other, and Inquisition is different. Not Infinite, the last one, Inquisition, is different from 2 and 1. So some people are saying, oh, well, that's just kind of what they do. Everyone is kind of a different vibe. But maybe that's not true. Or maybe it is true, but that's not what you pick up on. I get it.
I think this one is probably a far more different than the previous ones. But again, I only played Dragon Age Origins and I wasn't super impressed with it. I think spiritually, it probably is the biggest digression in the same way that Mass Effect Andromeda, which basically a lot of the same people worked on the Veilgard, in the same way that that was a giant failure. And it also had problems. It also, had a lot of issues due to the people that worked on it. So like, why can't we spend our money the way we want? And why shouldn't developers and publishers suffer the consequences for subpar products or propaganda, which is what I think this is?
That's a valid reason to be upset with the game. And if you are a homophobe or a transphobe or an anti-Semite or a racist, that's a valid reason to... So
again, this is like a veiled attack on people. Hey, did you know that if you don't like this game, you probably are a transphobe or a homophobe? And it depends on what you criticize. This is liberalism. Liberalism says tolerate everything, be good with everything, except, of course, racists, sexists, homophobes, and transphobes, which we get to define as liberals. We know what that looks like, right? Like if it was racist against white people or sexist against men, or I don't know, cisphobic, whatever the hell that is, like for normal people, that wouldn't be an issue. In fact, it'd probably be like an entertaining twist. Oh, look at that. Oh, the white guy's a villain. That's different. Which it isn't, obviously. This is like the default setting these days. But again, this is a kind of spineless attack on the gamers that have an opinion on this. If they don't want tranny propaganda in their video games, then they get to decide how to spend it. And that's what this is. And you'll find out, like, I'm telling you, this is the problem of tolerance. And I'm calling it right now. We are going to see a massive, pattern of people taking their own life because they got pushed into essentially chemically castrating themselves and getting ridiculous surgeries when we should have been telling them the truth out of love, and they're going to suffer. And I'm not saying that this has anything to do with blame, but how will liberals that were essentially behind all of this out of tolerance going to cope with that? Are they just going to say, well, I didn't know? Because people were trying to warn you about this for years, and you just said, no, but that sounds bigoted to me, So again, let's keep going.
Not like something that has elements of those things in it. I would judge you for it negatively. And I know some of you are like, I just don't like, whatever. I don't care. I mean, I care, but that's not what this video is about, and that's what my other video is about. I was making a video saying, shut the fuck up, it's obnoxious. That was me. I mean, seriously, you guys, if you come to this channel, you have to know. I don't play a character, I don't do shtick, but I do amplify my emotions just for the nature of being engaging on camera and, getting to a point quicker than having to spend, what are we at now? 2 minutes, 3 minutes on a video like this, literally parsing the language. So anyway.
All right, whatever. So he kind of like meanders a little bit. So let's go to the next thing. So this is because it wasn't enough. He had to follow up. So he did another video called Fear of Woke May Be Robbing You of Two Amazing Adventures, Star Wars Outlaws and Dragon Age Veilgard. So again, we're going to get another short video of him saying, dude, you guys are missing out. You should be consumers. You should consume. Why aren't you consuming? Don't you want to play the new thing? Don't you want the new thing? Literally, we as gamers, we always have options, right? So let's listen to this argument.
You'll have to forgive my lethargy. I smoked a lot of stuff last evening, and I know you're not supposed to have a hangover from that, but I always do, man. I always have some kind of... I woke up this morning and started playing a little bit more Dragon Age Veilgard that I've been playing on and off since it came out. And it's also on the weekend that Star Wars Outlaws got their big final, well, their first DLC, but their big push, their big final, big patch to make a lot of quality of life improvements and stealth improvements and combat, blah, blah, blah. And I just wanted to mention, it just occurs to me that there are people who are going to be missing out on some great games. Maybe it's the marketing's fault. They should figure out how to push back on some of these messages. But when you look at some of the internet comments of Veilgard, Dragon Age, and Star Wars, you would be forgiven if you thought these things were messes and they were crap and they were just...
So he basically puts up thumbnails. Maybe some of you guys that know some of these creators. So he's trying to tell us, guys, you're missing out. Your hatred for women and people of color and gay people and trans people, it is blinding you from all of the good games you could be playing right now. You're missing out, guys. You're missing out. What? Oh, are you playing like your backlog of Steam games or stuff that you like have from like your PS2 games, your PS2 days or your Xbox 360 days? Well, dude, come on now. It's 2024. You should be playing the new thing. You should be on the new thing. And it's like, we don't need that. There's plenty of new games, old games, indie games, and actual AAA games that are, not bullshit that you could be playing. Anyway, let's keep going. But this is funny. This is like a really strange way to cope, Even
though I'm progressive and I have no problem with what some people, I know the definition shifts, is calling woke. Some people say they don't like it, whatever. You would be forgiven to assume that's what those games, that's all they were. And they're just not. And I'm just letting you know, man. And
I don't even think David Jaffe's taking money for this, so let's not call him a shill for money. I don't think he's getting paid for this. I think he legitimately believes that you should always be playing the new thing, and especially if the new thing is progressive in some way. Like Star Wars Outlaws, I have no interest. Like the Star Wars brand holds no appeal for me after what Disney did to it. The only Star Wars game I still think is all right is probably Jedi Survivor, which I do have a lot of criticisms of anyway. But if you're going to play like a game where you're in Star Wars, wouldn't you rather just play as a Jedi who wants to be like just some random person with a gun? It might as well. And it is just generic Ubisoft slop because it's just doing what all the Assassin's Creeds and Watch Dogs and all these other Ubisoft games of the past that were basically similar. It just has a Star Wars paint job. So it's not even original, plus all the bugs and everything. And what they did, with the main character. Like, why are they intentionally unattractive? Oh, and he's going to get into that here in a bit, too. So.
Don't get me wrong. I mean, there's some cringy scenes in Veilgard, even though I'm
absolutely
super allied with LGBT folks. The scene everybody shows about the push-ups and stuff is stupid, poorly written.
What are you doing? Pulling above. Oh.
The hero of Outlaws.
That's it's honestly like immersion shattering to have someone suddenly stand up and respect pronouns in a medieval setting. I know it's not a real setting, but there is no precedent for this, and we know what it's really about. Like we're not stupid. This is, and I think what I think too is a lot of this is actually a response not to the games, but to what I think progressives feel is a titanic shift in the culture after the recent election of Donald Trump. Yes, I'll say it, because that's what I think it is. And they're freaking shaking in their boots now because the ideas that they hold dear, they feel are genuinely under threat because they had this nightmarish version of reality in their minds about what a Trump presidency means, not just in terms of the political impact, but what the average American must be, right? Like he thinks they're all Nazis, or at least half the country are evil people. So they're panicked and they're feeling the effect. I'm sure he's upset about the election. I promise you he's upset about the election. And it's probably things like, well, we could have had a female president for the first time. I wanted to make history, you know, like we did when Obama got in. That was like history, right? We were supposed to give a shit about that. So, yeah, I think that that's what part of it is. I think that the progressives are very, very unaccustomed to adapting to this current paradigm, and they are panicking. And gamers in particular, or anybody who watches media, they're all just finding different things to do. Nobody's watching TV, film. Hollywood is dying. You know, very little is coming out of there that anyone is interested in. I don't think that we're going to see blockbusters like we used to. Streaming services are losing money. You know, video game AAA developers are like essentially crashing and burning because they keep misfiring with all their woke shit and their DEI and their BlackRock and all that. And it's just like, it deserves to die. It all deserves to die. So I have no sympathy. And and I know it's bad because people who are probably decent human beings are going to lose their jobs. But the fact is that until progressives take a step back and stop looking in the mirror and start going out in the world and start talking to regular people and start learning that maybe they were wrong and maybe they invested in the wrong ideas. And this is extremely important. The humility has to happen, and it's going to happen one way or the other. They're either going to do it on their own or they're going to suffer to the point where, and I don't want people to suffer, but they will, because as long as you hide from the truth and you hide from reality, reality will eventually win. It always wins because it is what it is. So I don't know. I hope that David Jaffe understands it's really messed up too, because he was one of the biggest people that pushed back on journalists back in the day. You know, when they tried to accuse Kratos of sexism and all this, and he was saying, "Oh, you guys are being Bush League." I don't know if that shook him into like this being like a progressive, like, "Oh my God, I guess I was wrong," because he did kind of defend what happened with God of War when they rebooted it. And I think that was a mistake. I don't know. Maybe he's actually going through something upstairs and he's having a hard time, because it's one of these things, like the paradigm exists. It says liberalism is good, and everybody was brought up under this paradigm, unless you lived like off the grid someplace, like on a like an Amish community or something. Everybody who lived in modernity absorbed that language. Being liberal is good, period, right? The opposite of that is bad. And that's why to this day, I have to basically say, well, what is it about non-liberals that you don't like? And it's always a bunch of, phobic, istophobic labels. And it's like, well, how do you know that that's true of those people? But it certainly is not. They just think they own the market on being a decent person. And that's like their primary thing to fall back on. I'm a good person. I care about people, right? It just isn't true. It's not unique to them. In fact, their tolerance will get people killed, and it has gotten people killed. But anyway, I digress.
She looks like this, which I think she's super cute and she's fun and she's very likable.
Whatever I gotta do. No, she looks like a freaking goblin, like the Green Goblin. That's what she looks like.
Yeah, I mean, she doesn't look like this. Sorry, but I mean, if that's what you demand, that's fine. If every female in your games has to be a fucking sex pot, or she's a dog and she's woke and she's unacceptable, hey, that's your thing. That's fine. But I will.
Do you see that? It's more passive aggression. Well, if you want to treat women like objects, I guess that's just your thing. I don't know, man. It's kind of gross, and it's actually really feminine to do that. To imply someone is a bigot, and don't just say it. Well, if that's your thing, I think that's really spineless.
I will tell you, man, that if you like adventures, like when I worked on God of War, to me it was all about what I wanted to do back then was come up with a way for the player to really feel like they were getting the back of the box promise. I remember going into a GameStop or Babbage's, I don't know what it was at the time. And the back of the Banjo-Kazooie box, this is what it said. Miles of swamp, desert, and snow, and one bear of an adventure stand in their way. And then I love Banjo-Kazooie, but when I got the game home and played it, it didn't feel like I was going on an adventure. It just felt like I was collecting a bunch of things and exploring, but it didn't deliver the promise. And so whenever I can find games that actually deliver that promise of making me feel like I've stepped into this great adventure, I'm excited. And I just want to tell you that Star Wars and Dragon Age, maybe they have some, aspects that aren't perfect for you, but the idea of the games sending you on these really great adventures that are fun places to explore, neat things to see, cool enemies to fight, cool scenarios to find yourself in. I'm telling you, both of these games deliver on that. And as Black Friday rolls in and a lot of holiday deals come up, or even if you don't want to believe your old Papa Jaffe, that's fine. Sooner than later, hopefully one of these will be on Game Pass or they'll be on PlayStation Plus trial period. Don't forget them. If you like adventures in your games, if you actually feel like you're going on cool quests and cool grand experiences and stuff, circle back because...
Okay, stopping it there. I mean, basically he just sort of wraps up with this and he kind of mentions Elden Ring as another option. And that's really what it comes down to. Star Wars Outlaws and the Dragon Age, the Veilgard, they're obviously not the only games offering that. You can literally get any number of games. There's plenty of indie titles. I can make a few recommendations right off the bat. Definitely pick up Elden Ring. Stop buying into the hype if you never played it, that it's hard. Just trust me, it's not. They're blowing it way out of proportion. You're literally dealing with retarded reviewers that don't know how to do a fucking air dash on Cuphead. Play Elden Ring, it's fine. Play some of the older ones. Play the original Dark Souls. If you they're really, the whole thing about them is really, really overblown. Play Sekiro, play Ghost of Tsushima. That's a really great game that I'm sure a lot of people never, got to finish. They wanted to get back to. Play Baldur's Gate 3. I mean, I think it's got a lot of subversive stuff in it, but in terms of mechanics, it's solid, and you can literally just kill whoever you disagree with in the game if you want. And I think that is that's huge. In a lot of games, they don't even allow that, right? Yeah, there's you can go back and play your backlog. I think we stick to the plan that Grum's put out, which is essentially to don't buy any new AAA titles for 2 years and let them squirm and whine and cope and seethe and cry about the fact that people aren't buying their new product. Because at some point they have to realize that consumers have power, and you do, and that power is to spend the money on whatever you want and whatever you think is worth it. So I could also recommend, pick up Space Marine 2. That's a really fun game. A lot of fun gameplay. Very simple, but I enjoy it quite a bit. I think Helldivers is still solid. If you could, you want to get back into that. Content warning, Armored Core 6. I could keep going. There's plenty, and maybe you guys have some recommendations in the comment section. Shit, people go back and play, old games like Portal 2 or Skyrim. So no, I mean, we just don't have to do this. We really don't. We have plenty at our fingertips. So why is it you're pushing so hard? Anyway, let us know what you think about this. Let me know, because I'm the only person here. Let me know what you guys think about this video response to David Jaffe. I hope that this finds you well. Shout out to David Jaffe for his commentary. I'm just pointing out that nothing against you personally, but I think you are in a bad place right now. You're trying to figure out how your liberalism fits in with other people's opinions, and it's troubling you. So anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed, and please share the video. I will see you guys in the comment section.